Iran has bombed Iraq. It has struck Saudi Arabia. It has launched missiles toward the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, Turkey, and even Cyprus. 16 days of war. Thousands of missiles and drones fired in every direction. Countries far from Iran's border have been hit. Countries with minimal strategic significance have been targeted. The entire region is on fire. But there is one country, right on Iran's border, sharing 900 kilometers of direct frontier with Iran, that has not received a single missile. Not one drone. Not even a verbal threat. And that country has American military reconnaissance operations running on its soil. That country is Pakistan. And the question of why Iran has left Pakistan completely untouched is the most strategically fascinating question of this entire war. Let us first establish the facts clearly. Pakistan and Iran share a 900-kilometer border. They are literal neighbors, not distant regional players. Iran has attacked Jordan, which shares no border with it. It has struck Cyprus, which is an island in the Mediterranean with minimal military significance to this conflict. It has fired toward Turkey. It has launched strikes at countries that pose far less of a strategic threat to it than Pakistan does. Because Pakistan has not only US reconnaissance assets on its territory, it has deployed its own F-16 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia under a mutual defense agreement. Saudi Arabia, Iran's primary regional rival. Pakistan is militarily present on the side opposing Iran. And yet, complete silence. No strikes, no threats, no warnings. In a war where Iran has issued ultimatums to everyone from the United Kingdom to South Korea, Pakistan has not received so much as a strongly worded statement. To understand why, you first need to understand the almost impossibly complex position Pakistan currently occupies on the global chessboard. Pakistan has a strategic defense agreement with Saudi Arabia, Iran's biggest regional rival. It has physically deployed F-16s to Saudi soil as part of that agreement. Over 80% of Pakistan's military hardware is procured from China. It is simultaneously fighting its own internal war against the Taliban along its Afghan border. It is managing violent pro-Iran Shia protests erupting inside its own major cities. It has evacuated approximately 35,000 Pakistani nationals who were trapped inside Iran when the war began. And it has publicly stated, on the record, that it believes Iran is defending itself against US and Israeli aggression. Read that list again slowly. Pakistan is allied with Iran's enemies. Pakistan is sympathetic to Iran's cause. Pakistan is fighting its own war. Pakistan is managing Iran-aligned domestic protests. Pakistan is evacuating citizens from inside Iran itself. There is no other country on earth currently occupying this many contradictory positions simultaneously. And this is the first key to understanding Iran's silence toward Pakistan. Attacking Pakistan would force it to choose a side. Right now, Pakistan not choosing a side is worth more to Iran than any missile strike could possibly achieve. If Iran hits Pakistani territory, Islamabad has no choice but to respond. It activates its Saudi defense commitments. It potentially activates its relationship with China in an adversarial context. It removes the one major regional player that is simultaneously talking to everyone, including Iran, without committing to anyone's camp. Iran does not want Pakistan as an enemy. Iran wants Pakistan exactly where it is, ambiguous, diplomatically active, and unable to be claimed as a full ally by Washington or Riyadh. The moment Iran fires a single missile at Pakistani soil, that ambiguity evaporates. And the strategic value Pakistan provides to Iran disappears with it. Ion dollars in the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, known as CPEC. This is one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects in human history. A network of roads, railways, pipelines, and energy infrastructure running from the western regions of China all the way to Gwadar Port on Pakistan's Arabian Sea coastline in Balochistan province. Gwadar Port sits just 170 kilometers from Iran's own port of Chabahar. These two ports are practically neighbors. Now consider this. China purchases over 80% of Iran's total oil exports. In a war where Iran is under devastating economic pressure, China is not just a trading partner. China is Iran's economic oxygen. Without Chinese oil purchases, Iran's war economy collapses within weeks. Iran will not, under any circumstances, take any action that threatens its relationship with China. And attacking Pakistan means attacking the endpoint of China's single most strategically important infrastructure investment on Earth. Beijing has made its position on CPEC unambiguous. Chinese officials have stated publicly that the corridor and Gwadar port must be protected at all costs. China has even proposed permanently stationing Chinese military personnel inside Gwadar to guarantee that protection. When China says something must be protected at all costs, every government in the region understands what those words mean. Iran attacking Pakistan does not just risk a Pakistani response, it risks a Chinese response. And China is the country keeping Iran's economy alive, keeping its oil revenues flowing, keeping its financial system from complete collapse under Western sanctions. Iran bombing Pakistan is Iran bombing its own lifeline. No military strategist in Tehran, no matter how aggressive their posture toward Washington and Tel Aviv, is going to make that calculation. Now here is where the analysis enters territory that is not confirmed fact, but is being discussed seriously enough by defense analysts that it deserves careful examination. Iran has been firing thousands of missiles and drones every day for 16 days. The United States military claims to have destroyed Iran's primary missile production facilities. American commanders say Iran's daily missile volume is down 90% from what it was on day one of the conflict. So the question that is genuinely puzzling military analysts across the world is, where are Iran's weapons still coming from? One theory that is gaining serious traction in defense circles points directly at the geography we have already been discussing. The CPEC corridor runs through Pakistan's Balochistan province. That province shares a direct land border with Iran's Sistan-Balochistan province. These two regions are connected by terrain that is vast, remote, and extraordinarily difficult to monitor from the air or from satellite. The theory being discussed, and I want to be absolutely clear, this is analytical hypothesis, not confirmed intelligence, is that this corridor may be functioning as a supply route. Iranian oil moving eastward into China via Pakistan. Chinese manufactured drones, missile components, and military supplies moving westward back into Iran. If this supply route exists, and the geography certainly makes it physically possible, then Pakistan is not just a neutral bystander in this conflict. Pakistan's territory may be the thread keeping Iran's military capability from completely unraveling. And in that scenario, attacking Pakistan is not just diplomatically foolish, it is strategically suicidal. The fourth reason is the one that military planners never ignore, and politicians rarely discuss publicly. Pakistan is a nuclear-armed state. Iran is not. Attacking a nuclear power, even with purely conventional weapons, carries escalation risks that no serious military planner takes lightly. A conflict that crosses into Pakistani territory does not stay contained to Pakistan and Iran. It immediately triggers calculations involving China, which has strategic commitments to Pakistan. It triggers calculations involving India, which shares its own nuclear-armed border with Pakistan and watches every development on Pakistan's western frontier with intense interest. It raises the possibility of nuclear signaling, nuclear posturing, and nuclear miscalculation in a region that is already managing the most dangerous concentration of military hardware since the Cold War. Iran is fighting a calculated strategic war. Whatever you think of Tehran's political leadership, their military and strategic planners are not reckless. Opening a nuclear-adjacent crisis with Pakistan while simultaneously fighting the United States military and Israel is not strategy. It is a path to complete destruction, and Iran's military knows it. Let us now put all four of these reasons together, because individually each one is significant. Together they create something much larger. Pakistan sits at the precise intersection of every strategic interest Iran cannot afford to damage. China's $62 billion infrastructure investment terminates in Pakistan. China's economic lifeline to Iran runs through the relationship that protects that investment. Pakistan's nuclear status raises the escalation threshold to a level Iran cannot risk crossing. Pakistan's diplomatic ambiguity gives Iran something no missile can buy, a channel to the outside world that is not fully aligned with Washington. And Pakistan's domestic complexity, with its pro-Iran Shia population, its pro-Saudi military commitments, its pro-China economic dependency, makes it the most genuinely neutral major actor in the entire region. Iran is not being generous toward Pakistan. Iran is not being merciful. Iran is being coldly, precisely, brilliantly strategic. Every missile Iran does not fire at Pakistan is a strategic asset Iran is preserving. And here is the larger picture that this single question, why has Iran not hit Pakistan, reveals about the world we are now living in. The old framework of the Middle East conflict, where it was simply America, and Israel against the Arab and Muslim world no longer describes reality. What we are watching is the emergence of a genuinely multipolar conflict architecture. Iran is fighting America and Israel while being economically sustained by China. Pakistan is militarily allied with Saudi Arabia while being economically dependent on China and diplomatically sympathetic to Iran. China is funding Iran's war economy while simultaneously protecting its own infrastructure running through the country Iran's enemies are allied with. Every actor is managing 4 or 5 contradictory relationships simultaneously. There are no clean alliances, there are no simple loyalties. There is only interest, cold, calculated, national interest being pursued with extraordinary precision by governments that have learned from decades of watching what happens when you make strategic miscalculations in this region. But beneath all of this strategic calculation, there are human beings. 35,000 Pakistani families were trapped inside Iran when the bombs started falling. They had to be evacuated through a border that neither side wanted to close, because closing it would force the strategic ambiguity that both sides need to maintain. Pakistani workers, laborers, pilgrims, students, caught inside a war that their government's carefully calibrated neutrality was designed to prevent them from being caught in. The same neutrality that protects Pakistan strategically is the neutrality that left those 35,000 people stranded inside a war zone. Geopolitics always has a human cost, and that cost is rarely paid by the strategists doing the calculations. So what happens next? If the corridor theory is correct and Pakistan's territory is being used as a supply route, how long before American satellite intelligence confirms it and Washington presents Islamabad with a choice it cannot avoid? If China's involvement deepens, how long before the US-China dimension of this conflict moves from economic to military? If Iran's missile capacity is genuinely depleted, does Tehran look for new pressure points? And does Pakistan's carefully maintained neutrality come under threat? And perhaps most importantly for Pakistan itself, how long can a country sustain this level of strategic ambiguity before the contradictions collapse inward? These are not rhetorical questions. These are the questions that Pakistan's civilian and military leadership is asking itself right now, in meetings that will never be reported and conversations that will never be recorded. The answers to those questions will shape not just Pakistan's future, but the future of the entire region. Iran has bombed 16 countries in 16 days. It has threatened governments on 3 continents. It has fired thousands of missiles at some of the most heavily defended airspace on Earth. And the one country it has not touched, the one country right on its border with American assets on its soil, is Pakistan. That silence is not weakness. That silence is not friendship. That silence is one of the most sophisticated pieces of strategic communication in modern military history. Iran is telling the world, we know exactly where our interests lie. We know exactly what we cannot afford to damage, and we are precise enough to leave untouched the one neighbor whose continued ambiguity is worth more to us than any military strike could ever be. Whether you admire that calculation or fear it, you cannot deny its intelligence. This is why Iran has not touched Pakistan. 4 reasons. 1 strategic picture, and a window into how the world's most complex geopolitical conflict is actually being managed beneath the surface of what you see in the headlines. If this analysis gave you a clearer picture of what is actually happening, share it with someone who needs to understand it. Subscribe for more analysis that goes deeper than the breaking news. Leave a comment. Do you think Pakistan's neutrality can survive? Until next time.